The blackness of space stretched endlessly beyond the viewport as Captain Rex Vance gazed at the approaching planet. Zarkan, once a jewel of the Andromeda sector, now appeared as a gray-blue orb, marred by dark patches, visible even from orbit. The scars of nearly a decade of civil war. "Final approach to Zarkan spaceport, Captain," announced the ship's AI. "Local authorities requesting identification and landing authorization." Rex sighed, running a hand through his close-cropped hair. "Transmit mercenary license ZX-119 and the Royal Invitation Code." The ship's communications panel blinked acknowledgement as it sent the credentials. Rex had been surprised when the message from King Orion had arrived 3 weeks ago. The ruler of a war-torn alien planet, personally requesting his services, was unusual, to say the least. The promised payment, however, had been impossible to refuse. Enough credits to retire comfortably on any pleasure world in the galaxy. As the ship descended through Zarkan's atmosphere, Rex's practiced eye took in the devastation below. Once gleaming cities lay in partial ruin. Agricultural fields showed the telltale blackened patterns of energy weapon bombardment. Scattered lights indicated the remaining population centers, significantly dimmer than they should have been on a developed world. The Royal Spaceport, at least, appeared somewhat functional, though several hangars showed blast damage, and the main terminal's dome was cracked. Maintenance droids scurried about performing repairs. A small delegation waited on the landing pad as his ship touched down with a soft hiss of landing gear. Rex checked his sidearm, a force of habit, before stepping into the airlock. The atmospheric readings showed Zarkan's air was breathable for humans. If slightly higher in nitrogen content, he would experience mild lightheadedness for a day or two until he acclimated. As the outer door slid open, Rex squared his shoulders and adopted the confident stride that had served him well across a dozen worlds and twice as many conflicts. The delegation consisted of 4 Zarkanian guards in formal regalia, their blue-tinged skin contrasting with silver armor that reflected the dim sunlight, and a tall, slender figure in elaborate robes that Rex assumed must be a royal advisor. The Zarkanians resembled humans in general body structure, though their skin ranged from pale blue to deep indigo, and small, luminescent spots adorned their temples and ran down their necks. "Captain Vance," the robed figure bowed slightly. "I am Chancellor Keth, Chief Advisor to King Orion. His Majesty eagerly awaits your arrival. We are grateful you have come." Rex returned the bow, recalling the basic diplomatic protocols he'd studied during the journey. "Chancellor, I appreciate the welcome. I understand time is of the essence." "Indeed." Keth's expression darkened. "The situation grows more precarious by the day. Please, follow me. A royal transport awaits to take you to the palace." As they walked toward an elegant hover vehicle, Rex noted the guard's posture, alert, professional, but weary. The weight of prolonged conflict showed in their movements. The spaceport workers they passed cast curious glances his way, some with hope in their eyes, others with suspicion. An outsider, especially a human, was clearly an unusual sight. The hover transport glided silently above the cracked pavement as they left the spaceport. Through the windows, Rex observed the capital city of Zarkania. Once magnificent spires of crystal and metal now stood damaged, their upper levels shattered. Citizens moved about their business with the hesitant efficiency of people accustomed to occasional bombardment. Defense batteries were positioned at major intersections, their energy capacitors glowing faintly. The Northern Coalition controls this sector, including the capital and royal palace, Chancellor Keth explained, following Rex's gaze. The Southern Dominion holds approximately 40% of the planet. The front lines shift weekly, sometimes daily. "And the king?" Rex asked. "Where does he stand in this conflict?" Chancellor Keth's luminescent spots pulsed briefly, a sign of emotional intensity. Rex recalled from his briefing materials. His Majesty has tried desperately to remain neutral, to be a unifying force. The monarchy predates the division between North and South by millennia. Both factions claim to respect the crown, while accusing the other of manipulating it. Rex nodded. It was a familiar story, replayed across countless worlds with minimal variation. And what exactly does the king expect me to accomplish that nearly a decade of your own efforts couldn't? That, said Keth, as the transport approached an enormous crystal palace with surprisingly minimal damage, is something His Majesty wishes to explain personally. The transport passed through multiple security checkpoints before entering the palace grounds. Despite the surrounding devastation, the gardens here retained some of their former splendor. Exotic plants with bioluminescent blooms lined the pathways, and crystalline fountains, though operating at reduced capacity, still created melodic patterns of water and light. Inside the palace, Rex noted the contrast between the grand architecture and the signs of a civilization under strain. Some halls were dimly lit to conserve energy. Guards were positioned strategically, but their numbers seemed thin. Artwork and artifacts had been removed from many display areas, presumably moved to secure locations. The throne room, when they reached it, retained much of its impressive grandeur. Soaring ceilings of translucent crystal allowed diffused light to illuminate the vast chamber. The throne itself was carved from what appeared to be a single, massive crystal, with intricate circuitry embedded within that caused it to pulse with gentle light, in rhythm with the occupants' biorhythms. King Orion rose as they entered, taller than most Zarkanians, with skin of deep cobalt and elaborate silver markings around his luminescent spots. He projected an aura of dignity, despite the visible fatigue in his bearing. A simple crown of interlaced silver and crystal adorned his head. "Captain Vance," the king's voice resonated with surprising depth. "You honor us with your presence." Rex bowed deeply, recognizing the importance of proper protocol. "Your Majesty, I came as quickly as possible." The king gestured to a seating area to one side of the throne. "Please, join me. We have much to discuss, and precious little time." As they settled into ornate chairs, designed for Zarkanian physiology, but reasonably comfortable for a human, Rex noticed two additional figures entering from a side chamber. Both were female Zarkanians, dressed in complementary gowns of shimmering fabric that accentuated their slender forms. Their skin was a lighter blue than the king's, and they moved with graceful precision that spoke of extensive training in royal deportment. "My daughters," King Orion introduced them with evident pride. "Princess Zelia and Princess Tylee." The princesses approached and offered formal bows, their luminescent spots pulsing in synchronized patterns that Rex couldn't interpret. Up close, he could see they were identical twins, distinguishable only by subtle differences in their attire and the styling of their silver-blue hair. "Captain," they spoke in unison, their voices melodic and perfectly matched. "Princesses," Rex acknowledged with a respectful nod. "My daughters will be integral to the solution I am about to propose," King Orion explained, as the princesses took seats, flanking their father. "Before we begin, I must ask, what do you know of Zarkanian history and culture, Captain?" Rex considered his answer carefully. "I've studied your basic societal structures and the origins of the current conflict. I understand the Northern Coalition and Southern Dominion were once united under your rule before ideological differences regarding planetary resources and governance led to separation and eventually war. Beyond that, I focused my preparation on current military deployments and political factions." The king nodded. "A practical approach, though in this case, it is our ancient cultural practices, rather than modern warfare, that may provide our salvation." He leaned forward, his expression intensifying. "Captain Vance, are you aware of the Zarkanian tradition of the Harmony Gathering?" Rex shook his head. "I'm afraid not, Your Majesty." "I thought as much." The king exchanged meaningful glances with his daughters and Chancellor Keth. Then, I must explain both our predicament and my proposed solution in greater detail. King Orion's luminescent spots pulsed as he gathered his thoughts. Our conflict has reached a critical juncture. Both sides have developed planetary destruction capabilities, weapons that could render Zarkon uninhabitable. Our scientists calculate that if the war continues for another 60 days, one side or the other will deploy these weapons, either in desperation or miscalculation. Rex felt a chill run through him. He had witnessed planetary bombardment before, but total destruction was another matter entirely. "And you believe I can prevent this?" "Yes," the king stated with unexpected conviction. "Through the revival of an ancient Zarkanian tradition, the Harmony Gathering." Princess Zelia spoke, her voice gentle yet precise. The Harmony Gathering is a ritual of reconciliation dating back to our earliest civilization. When tribal conflicts threatened our people's survival, leaders would come together in a ceremony of shared vulnerability and trust. Princess Tylee continued seamlessly where her sister left off. The ritual involves physical proximity, shared sustenance, and the exchange of biorhythmic energies, what you might call an empathic connection. It was designed to break down barriers between enemies and foster understanding. "This practice fell out of use centuries ago," Chancellor Keth added. "As our society became more technologically advanced and politically complex, many consider it merely a historical curiosity, a primitive custom from our past." King Orion's expression became resolute. "I believe this ancient wisdom is exactly what we need in our most desperate hour. The leaders of both factions still acknowledge the cultural authority of the monarchy, even as they fight each other. If they can be persuaded to participate in a harmony gathering, there is hope for peace." Rex frowned. "With respect, Your Majesty, why would hardened military commanders agree to participate in what sounds like a spiritual ceremony?" "They wouldn't," the king acknowledged. "Not without proper incentive and preparation. That is where you come in, Captain." "Me?" Rex raised an eyebrow. "I'm a mercenary, not a cultural attaché." Princess Zelia leaned forward, her luminescent spots pulsing with intensity. "You are an outsider, with a reputation for neutrality and effectiveness. Both factions respect strength and tactical acumen. Our intelligence suggests both General Korth of the Northern Coalition and Admiral Vex of the Southern Dominion admire your military accomplishments." Princess Tylee added, "They will listen to you where they would dismiss us as desperate royals clinging to outdated traditions." Rex considered this. His reputation did often precede him, though usually it led to combat assignments rather than peace negotiations. "What exactly would you have me do?" King Orion spread his hands in a gesture that seemed universal across species. "Learn our ways, understand the Harmony Gathering, then approach both leaders and convince them to participate in one final attempt at reconciliation before our world is destroyed. My daughters will instruct you in the necessary protocols," the king continued, nodding toward the princesses. "They are the last royal generation to have been fully trained in the ancient traditions." Rex glanced at the twin princesses, noting their poised demeanor and the intelligence in their eyes. Something about this situation felt unusual, beyond the obvious desperation of a planetary ruler facing extinction. There were undercurrents he couldn't quite identify. "The compensation would be substantial, as indicated in my initial offer," King Orion added, correctly interpreting Rex's hesitation. "Plus, you would have the gratitude of an entire civilization, assuming we survive." Rex had never considered himself an idealist. He fought for pay, not causes. Yet something about the king's dignity in the face of impending doom, and the princess's evident determination, stirred something within him. Besides, preventing planetary destruction was arguably in everyone's interest, including his own. I'll need complete access to information about both factions, their leaders, and detailed intelligence on their current positions and capabilities," Rex said, making his decision. "And I'll need to begin learning about this Harmony gathering immediately." Relief washed across the royal faces, their luminescent spots brightening perceptibly. "Thank you, Captain," King Orion said with sincere gratitude. "Chancellor Keth will provide all the strategic information you require. My daughters will begin your cultural instruction tomorrow." As Rex was led to his quarters in the palace's diplomatic wing, he wondered what he had gotten himself into. Saving a planet through ancient alien rituals had definitely not been in his plans when he accepted this assignment. But the credits were good, and failure meant a destroyed world, a stain even his pragmatic conscience would struggle to bear. His room was spacious by military standards, though it showed signs of the ongoing resource constraints. The lighting was minimal, and the temperature slightly cooler than human preference. The bed, designed for Zarkanian physiology, would take some getting used to. A communications terminal, security scanner, and refreshment synthesizer were the only technological amenities. A soft chime announced the arrival of data to the room's terminal. Rex found comprehensive files on the Northern Coalition and Southern Dominion, their military capabilities, leadership profiles, and the progression of the Civil War. He spent hours absorbing the information, identifying key pressure points and potential approaches for his unusual mission. General Korth of the Northern Coalition was a traditional military commander, disciplined, strategic, and deeply committed to Northern ideology of centralized governance and resource management. His forces controlled the major cities and technological centers. Admiral Vex of the Southern Dominion came from the agricultural regions, championing decentralized control and autonomous regional development. Her naval and aerial forces had maintained control of the southern hemispheric territories despite being technologically outmatched. Both were respected tacticians. Both believed absolutely in the righteousness of their cause. And according to the intelligence assessments, both were rapidly approaching the psychological threshold where planetary destruction would seem preferable to surrender. Rex sighed, leaning back from the terminal. Convincing such determined enemies to participate in an empathic bonding ritual would be challenging, to say the least. But he had talked his way out of execution chambers and negotiated with pirate kings. This was just another impossible situation with lives in the balance. As he finally lay down to rest, Rex reflected that at least this time, the lives at stake numbered in the billions rather than dozens. If he was going to risk his life on an assignment, the scale of this one made it somewhat worthwhile. The next morning, Rex awoke to another chime from his room's communication system. "Captain Vance," Princess Zelia's voice came through clearly. "We will begin your cultural instruction in the Eastern Conservatory in 1 hour. Chancellor Keth has arranged appropriate attire for you." Rex found the mentioned clothing laid out in an adjacent chamber. A simple tunic and trousers of lightweight, silvery fabric that seemed to adjust to his human physiology when he put it on. The garments were surprisingly comfortable and allowed full range of movement. Important considerations for a man who never completely let his guard down. The Eastern Conservatory proved to be a circular chamber with transparent crystal walls and ceiling, filled with carefully tended Zarkanian flora. Despite the ongoing conflict, this space had been maintained as a sanctuary of beauty and tradition. In the center stood a low table surrounded by cushions, where the twin princesses waited. "Captain," they greeted him in unison, rising gracefully. "Princesses," Rex nodded, still finding their synchronicity slightly disconcerting. "Please, join us." Princess Zelia gestured to a cushion positioned across from them. As Rex sat cross-legged on the cushion, grateful for the flexibility training that was part of his combat regimen, he noticed various items arranged on the table, small vessels containing liquids and substances of different colors, delicate instruments he couldn't identify, and what appeared to be food items. The Harmony Gathering has three fundamental components, Princess Tylee began. Shared sustenance, physical connection, and rhythmic alignment. We will teach you each aspect separately before you attempt to introduce them to the faction leaders. Let's start with the simplest element, Princess Zelia continued. Shared sustenance. She selected one of the small vessels, which contained a translucent blue liquid. This is Essence of Night Bloom, a traditional offering that symbolizes trust. In Zarkanian biology, consuming another's food can be an act of profound vulnerability, as our digestive systems evolved to detect toxins specific to individuals who might wish us harm. By willingly consuming food or drink provided by another, Princess Tylee explained, we demonstrate that we trust them not to poison us, literally and figuratively. Rex nodded, understanding the concept. Many species had similar customs, though few had evolved such specific biological mechanisms. Is this safe for human consumption? He asked, eyeing the blue liquid. We have analyzed human digestive capabilities, Princess Zelia assured him. These substances have been modified to be compatible with your physiology. Princess Tylee lifted a small cup, poured a measure of the blue liquid into it, and took a sip before offering it to Rex. I drink first to show there is no deception. Rex accepted the cup, noting how the princess had placed her lips exactly on the rim, and how her sister watched with intense focus. Following the demonstrated protocol, he sipped from the same spot. The liquid had a surprisingly pleasant taste, something like mint with honey undertones. Good. Princess Zelia nodded approvingly. In the Harmony Gathering, all participants must share the same vessels, consuming from the exact points where others have placed their lips. It creates the first level of connection. They proceeded through several more substances, each with its own symbolic meaning in Zarkanian culture. Rex dutifully tasted each one after the princesses, noting the increasing complexity of flavors and subtle effects. Some warmed his chest, others created tingling sensations along his spine, or a momentary heightening of his senses. These substances are mild enhancers, Princess Tylee explained as they completed the tasting. They prepare the body and mind for deeper connection by slightly altering perception and lowering natural barriers. They're psychoactive? Rex asked with professional concern. Mildly, Princess Zelia acknowledged. But they do not impair judgment or create artificial emotions. They simply make participants more receptive to genuine understanding. Rex filed this information away, recognizing both the potential value and complications it presented for convincing hardened military leaders to participate. Now we move to the second component, Princess Tylee said, rising gracefully. Physical connection. The princesses moved their cushions to flank Rex, sitting close enough that their knees nearly touched his. Zarkanians communicate not only through words and expressions, but through bioelectric fields generated by our bodies. Princess Zelia explained. These fields interact when we are in proximity, creating a form of unspoken communication that was essential to our early survival as a species. The Harmony Gathering requires participants to move through a sequence of increasingly intimate physical connections. Princess Tylee continued, beginning with proximity, progressing to brief touches, and culminating in an embrace that aligns the primary bioelectric nodes. Rex maintained his professional demeanor despite the unexpected direction of this training. And how do humans factor into this? We don't have bioelectric fields, at least not in the same way. Princess Zelia's luminescent spots pulsed in what Rex was beginning to recognize as amusement. All living beings generate energy fields. Captain, yours are different but not incompatible. In fact, human emotional states create particularly strong energetic signatures that our people can sense quite clearly. Which is partly why you were chosen, Princess Tylee added. Your presence as a neutral third party with a distinctly different energy signature can help break the deadlock between our warring factions. Rex nodded slowly, processing this information. So, what's the next step in this training? We demonstrate the physical sequence, Princess Zelia answered, extending her hand palm upward. Place your hand on mine. Rex hesitantly placed his palm against hers. Her skin was cooler than human temperature, but not unpleasantly so. He immediately felt a subtle vibration where they touched. That's normal, Princess Tylee assured him, observing his reaction. Our bioelectric fields are interacting with your nervous system. Princess Zelia kept her hand connected to Rex's while instructing. Now, concentrate on creating a sense of openness. Among our people, we would adjust our field patterns. But for you, the intention itself creates changes in your energy that we can perceive. Rex felt slightly foolish, but focused on the concept of openness as directed. To his surprise, the vibration between their palms changed subtly, becoming warmer. Excellent, Princess Zelia smiled, her spots brightening. You adapt quickly. Princess Tylee then placed her hand atop the connected hands. In the harmony gathering, touch progresses in specific patterns, each more intimate than the last, gradually breaking down the physical barriers between participants. Over the next hour, the princesses guided Rex through increasingly complex patterns of touch. Hands to wrists, palms to forearms, brief finger contact with faces and necks. Each position was held long enough to establish what they called resonance before moving to the next. Rex maintained his professional focus, though he couldn't help noticing the grace and beauty of the twin princesses as they moved through the ritual patterns with him. Their synchronized movements spoke of years of training, and their evident dedication to saving their world was admirable. The final stage, Princess Zelia explained as they completed another sequence, is full embrace. It is considered the most vulnerable position and is reserved for the conclusion of the harmony gathering. We will demonstrate this aspect tomorrow, Princess Tylee added, as they returned to their original positions at the table. It requires significant preparation. Rex nodded, somewhat relieved at the reprieve. The training was already pushing the boundaries of his usual professional distance. The third component, Princess Zelia continued, is rhythmic alignment. This is perhaps the most challenging aspect for non-Zarkanians. Princess Tylee produced a small, crystalline device that began emitting a complex, pulsating tone when activated. This represents the natural rhythm of Zarkanian life energy. In the harmony gathering, participants must synchronize their breathing and heartbeats to this common rhythm. Rex listened to the pulsing tones, trying to discern the pattern. It seemed to shift subtly, never quite resolving into a predictable sequence. It changes, he observed. Yes, Princess Zelia confirmed. Just as life is never static, the challenge is to find harmony within the constant change. The remainder of the session was spent practicing breath control and subtle body movements that helped align with the shifting rhythms. Rex found it challenging, but not impossible, drawing on meditation techniques he'd learned for combat focus. You have done well for your first day of training, Princess Tylee said, as they concluded the session. We will continue tomorrow with more advanced aspects. As Rex returned to his quarters, he found Chancellor Keth waiting for him. Captain, the Chancellor bowed slightly. How was your first cultural instruction? Informative, Rex replied neutrally. The princesses are knowledgeable instructors. Keth's luminescent spots pulsed in what might have been amusement. They are the finest practitioners of the old ways. Their grandmother insisted they be trained in all traditional arts, despite modernization elsewhere in society. The Chancellor's expression grew more serious. We've received intelligence that both factions have accelerated their destruction protocols. Our timeline may be shorter than initially estimated. Rex frowned. How much shorter? Possibly 30 days rather than 60. Then we need to expedite this process, Rex decided. How soon can I meet with General Korth and Admiral Vex? General Korth maintains a command center within the capital, Chancellor Keth replied. He could be approached as early as tomorrow. Admiral Vex is more complicated, She rarely leaves Southern territory. We would need to arrange secure transport and guarantees of safe passage. Rex considered the options. Let's start with General Korth. If I can convince him, it might provide leverage with Admiral Vex. A sound strategy, Keth agreed. I'll arrange a meeting for tomorrow afternoon, following your cultural training session. As the Chancellor departed, Rex returned to studying the faction profiles and planning his approach. The stakes were impossibly high, and the method decidedly unorthodox, but he had committed to this course. Now, he needed to convince two lifelong enemies to embrace each other in an ancient ritual before they destroyed their world. The next morning's training session began earlier and with greater intensity. The princesses seemed to sense the increased urgency, moving through preliminary exercises quickly before addressing more complex aspects of the harmony gathering. Today, we will practice the complete physical sequence, Princess Zelia announced as they settled in the conservatory, which had been adjusted to provide more privacy. Heavy draperies now covered the crystal walls, and the lighting was dimmer, creating an intimate atmosphere. The harmony gathering traditionally occurs in 3 stages over several hours, Princess Tylee explained. But given our time constraints, we must prepare you for a condensed version that still maintains the essential elements. Rex nodded, his military mind appreciating the need for efficiency, while recognizing the potential risks of rushing a delicate cultural process. The princesses had dressed differently today, their formal gowns replaced by simpler attire of flowing fabric that allowed greater freedom of movement. Rex noticed that the garments, while modest by human standards, revealed more of the luminescent patterns that traced along their blue skin. We begin as before, Princess Zelia instructed, with shared sustenance. The ritual of shared food and drink proceeded more quickly than the previous day, though Rex noted new substances had been added to the sequence. One in particular, a golden liquid with flecks of luminescent material suspended within, created a pleasant warmth that spread throughout his body after consumption. This is harmony nectar, Princess Tylee explained as they each partook. It heightens empathic sensitivity and is reserved for the most sacred ceremonies. Rex felt a subtle shift in his perception as the nectar took effect. The princess's luminescent patterns seemed more vibrant, and he found himself more attuned to their subtle expressions and movements. It wasn't intoxication in the conventional sense. His mind remained clear, but rather an enhanced awareness of the others present. Now we move to physical alignment, Princess Zelia said, her voice seeming to resonate at a deeper level than before. The touch sequences began, as they had the previous day, but progressed more quickly and with additional positions. Rex found himself responding more naturally to the guidance, his body intuitively finding the correct alignments with the princess's movements. In the actual harmony gathering, Princess Tylee explained, as they completed a complex pattern of interlaced arms and hands. Participants move continuously through these positions, gradually building resonance between their energy fields. The ultimate goal, Princess Zelia continued, is to achieve what our people call unified perception, a temporary state where emotional barriers dissolve, allowing true understanding of another's perspective. As they progressed to more intimate positions, hands resting on shoulders, foreheads briefly touching, Rex became increasingly aware of a tangible energy building between them. The princess's luminescent spots pulsed in complex patterns, sometimes in unison, sometimes in counterpoint. Now we will demonstrate the culmination of the physical sequence, Princess Zelia said, her voice soft but clear. The full embrace. The princesses positioned themselves on either side of Rex, their movements perfectly coordinated. Following their guidance, he extended his arms as they stepped closer, until the 3 of them were joined in a triangular embrace, each with an arm around the other's waists. Their free hands joined in the center. The sensation was immediate and powerful. Where their bodies connected, Rex felt energy flowing like warm currents between them. The princess's luminescent spots brightened dramatically, casting a gentle blue glow over all three of them. "Breathe with the rhythm," Princess Tylee instructed, her voice near his ear. Rex focused on matching his breathing to the pulsing light of their spots, which had synchronized into a single pattern. As he did so, the energy flow intensified, creating a circuit that seemed to connect all three of them at a fundamental level. With startling clarity, he became aware of emotions that were not his own. The princess's desperate hope for their world's salvation, their determination to succeed, their appreciation of his willingness to help, and something else, something more personal directed toward him that he couldn't quite identify. The moment stretched, intense and intimate, before the princesses gently disengaged, stepping back though, keeping light contact with their hands on his arms. "That," Princess Zelia said softly, her spots still pulsing rapidly, "is the essence of the harmony gathering." Rex took a moment to regain his equilibrium, the lingering effects of the connection still echoing through him. "That was profound," he admitted. "More powerful than I expected." "Yes," Princess Tylee agreed, her expression suggesting the experience had affected her as well. "Now imagine lifelong enemies experiencing this connection, feeling each other's genuine fears, hopes, and pain. It becomes nearly impossible to maintain hatred in such circumstances, which is why we believe it can succeed where conventional diplomacy has failed." Princess Zelia added, "The harmony gathering bypasses intellectual arguments and political positions, reaching directly to the emotional core of conflict." Rex considered the implications. If even a fraction of what he had just experienced could be transferred to the faction leaders, it might indeed create an opening for peace. "I'm meeting with General Korth this afternoon," he informed them. "How would you suggest I approach introducing this concept? Military leaders aren't typically receptive to discussions of empathic bonding." The princesses exchanged a glance, their spots briefly pulsing in matched rhythm. "Present it first in terms of historical significance," Princess Zelia advised. "Zarkanians respect tradition, even when they claim to have moved beyond it. Emphasize that both sides would participate equally, maintaining balance," Princess Tylee added. "And perhaps most importantly, frame it as an alternative to mutual destruction rather than as surrender." Rex nodded, already formulating his approach. "And the physical aspects? That may be the most difficult barrier." "Begin with the concept of shared sustenance," Princess Zelia suggested. "It is the least intimate component and easiest to accept as a formal diplomatic protocol. Once that is established," Princess Tylee continued, "introduce the physical elements gradually, perhaps comparing them to formal military ceremonies that also involve precise movements and positions." The remainder of the session focused on specific language and cultural references that would resonate with Zarkanian military leaders. By the time they concluded, Rex felt reasonably prepared for his first diplomatic overture. General Korth's headquarters occupied what had once been a prestigious government building near the palace. Now, it served as the nerve center for Northern Coalition operations, its elegant architecture marred by defensive installations and the constant movement of military personnel. Rex was escorted through multiple security checkpoints, aware of the suspicious glances from Northern soldiers. His reputation had preceded him, generating a mixture of professional respect and wariness. The general's office reflected its occupant's personality, spartanly furnished, meticulously organized, with tactical displays covering most wall surfaces. General Korth himself stood examining a three-dimensional projection of troop deployments, his tall, muscular frame clothed in a practical uniform with minimal ornamentation. His skin was a darker blue than the royal family's, marked with faded scars from previous conflicts. "Captain Vance," the general acknowledged without looking away from the display. "I wondered when the monarchy would resort to hiring outsiders." Rex remained at a respectful distance, observing protocol while projecting confidence. "General, I appreciate you making time to meet." Korth finally turned, studying Rex with penetrating eyes. His luminescent spots pulsed in a controlled, disciplined pattern. Your reputation is impressive. 12 major conflicts, always on the winning side. The Battle of Centauri Prime was particularly noteworthy. You've done your research, Rex commented neutrally. Of course. The general gestured to a seating area. Now, let's dispense with pleasantries. What does Orion want? More concessions? Another ceasefire that the Southerners will inevitably violate? Rex took the offered seat, maintaining eye contact. The king is concerned about reports of planet-killer weapons nearing deployment. As I'm sure you're aware, such weapons would make victory meaningless. General Korth's spots pulsed rapidly before settling. A necessary deterrent. The Southern Dominion developed their version first. We merely responded in kind. And now both sides have the capability to render Zarkan uninhabitable, Rex observed, creating a stalemate that benefits no one. If that's the price of preventing Southern domination, so be it, Korth replied, though Rex detected a note of resignation beneath the resolute exterior. The king proposes an alternative, Rex said carefully. A revival of the harmony-gathering tradition. General Korth's reaction was immediate, his posture stiffening, spots flaring. Ancient superstition. We abandoned such practices when we embraced rational governance. Did you? Rex countered. Or did you simply set aside traditions that might have prevented this conflict in the first place? The general's eyes narrowed. You know nothing of our struggle, mercenary. I know the Northern Coalition believes in centralized authority and technological advancement. Rex responded calmly. I know you fought for nearly a decade to bring the Southern territories under that authority. And I know that despite superior technology and resources, you haven't succeeded, suggesting the conflict isn't as one-sided as you might wish. Korth remained silent, his expression unreadable except for the subtle pulsing of his spots. Rex continued. The Harmony Gathering isn't about surrender or concession. It's about finding a path forward that doesn't end with a dead planet. Both you and Admiral Vex would participate equally, maintaining balance between North and South. Vex would never agree, Korth scoffed. She's more stubborn than a rock formation. Perhaps, Rex acknowledged. But are you willing to bet your world on that assumption without testing it? The general turned away, moving to a window that overlooked the battle-scarred city. You don't understand what's at stake. The Southern philosophy of decentralization would return us to tribal chaos. Everything we've built over centuries would crumble. Then explain that to Vex, Rex suggested. Not through propaganda or battlefield communiques, but directly, personally. The Harmony Gathering provides that opportunity. Korth was silent for a long moment before asking, what exactly would this ceremony entail? Rex outlined the basics of the Harmony Gathering as the princesses had described it, carefully emphasizing its historical significance while downplaying the more intimate aspects. He presented it as a formal diplomatic protocol with deep cultural roots rather than a spiritual or emotional practice. Shared food and drink I can accept, the general said finally. The physical proximity is problematic, and I have no interest in empathic connection with Southern terrorists. Consider it a strategic assessment opportunity, Rex countered. Military intelligence on your opponent's true position and intentions, unfiltered by intermediaries. This framing seemed to resonate more effectively. Korth's expression shifted from dismissal to calculation. And the king? What is his role in this? Neutral facilitator, Rex replied. The monarchy stands apart from the conflict, concerned only with Zarkan's survival. The general turned back to face Rex fully. I will consider it, on one condition. You must secure Admiral Vex's agreement first. I won't risk appearing weak by accepting and then having her refuse. Rex had anticipated this response. Fair enough. I'll arrange a meeting with the Admiral, but I'll need your provisional acceptance to convince her. Tell her I am willing to discuss the possibility, Korth conceded. Nothing more. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a start. Rex thanked the general for his time and departed, already planning his approach to the more challenging task of convincing Admiral Vex. Back at the palace, Rex reported his limited success to the royal family in a private council chamber. General Korth is cautiously receptive, he explained, but insists Admiral Vex must agree first. King Orion nodded thoughtfully. As expected, neither wishes to appear to be the one seeking reconciliation. We need to arrange secure transport to Southern Territory, Chancellor Keth noted, and guarantees of safe passage for Captain Vance. I have channels of communication with Admiral Vex's second-in-command, Princess Zelia offered. We maintained some connections even after the conflict began. Excellent, the king approved. Make the arrangements. Time is of the essence. As the meeting concluded, Princess Tylee approached Rex privately. You handled General Korth well. Few outsiders have ever secured even tentative cooperation from him. He's a practical man beneath the ideology, Rex observed. He recognizes the futility of mutual destruction, even if he won't admit it openly. Admiral Vex will be more difficult, Princess Tylee warned. She is passionate about Southern autonomy and deeply distrustful of Northern promises. Then I'll need to approach her differently, Rex acknowledged. Any insights would be helpful. The princess considered for a moment, her luminescent spots pulsing gently. Vex comes from a traditional Southern family with strong ties to the land, appeal to preservation rather than progress. And she hesitated briefly. She lost family in the early days of the conflict. That personal loss drives much of her determination. Rex nodded, appreciating the intelligence. Thank you. That helps. Princess Tylee studied him with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. You're risking much for a world not your own. May I ask why? The question caught Rex off guard. His standard answer would have been simple. Professional obligation, contractual commitment, the promised payment. But something about the princess's direct gaze prompted unexpected honesty. I've spent my career fighting other people's wars, he said after a moment. Usually for causes I neither fully understood nor cared about. This is different. Preventing extinction seems worthwhile, regardless of the politics involved. The princess's spots brightened. A warrior with a conscience, rarer than you might think. She touched his arm briefly, a gesture that sent a subtle ripple of energy through him, reminiscent of their training session. Rest tonight. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. The journey to Southern Territory proved more complicated than anticipated. Direct air travel was impossible due to defensive systems that would target any approaching craft. Instead, Rex was transported via an ancient underground transit system that predated the conflict, accompanied by Princess Zelia as royal envoy and a small security detail. The transit pods moved swiftly through crystal-lined tunnels deep beneath Zarkan's surface. Princess Zelia explained that the system had been largely abandoned after newer transportation technologies emerged, but had been partially maintained by the monarchy as an emergency option. The Southern Territories are different from what you've seen in the North, she informed Rex as they traveled. Less urbanized, more integrated with the natural environment. Admiral Vex's headquarters is located within the Luminous Forest, one of our most sacred ecological zones. Rex nodded, reviewing his approach. The princesses had provided additional cultural context overnight, and he'd studied Admiral Vex's biography in detail. Born Marana Vex in a small, agricultural community. She had risen through Southern Defense Forces based on tactical brilliance rather than political connections. Her family's ancestral lands had been among the first casualties of Northern technological expansion, converted to energy production facilities against local wishes. The transit pod slowed as they approached their destination. We'll be met by Southern representatives here, Princess Zelia explained. I've arranged for Commander Talus, the Admiral's most trusted lieutenant, to escort us the remainder of the way. The Southern greeting party was noticeably different from their Northern counterparts. Their uniforms incorporated natural materials alongside technological components, and their formal movements included elements that seemed almost ritual in nature. Commander Talus, a lean Zarkanian with vibrant spotted patterns, greeted Princess Zelia with elaborate courtesy before turning a more assessing gaze on Rex. "Captain Vance," the commander acknowledged, "your presence here is unexpected. The Admiral has agreed to meet you, though I should warn you her patience for Northern appeasement is limited." "I represent neither North nor South," Rex replied evenly. "Only the possibility of a world that continues to exist." Talus's spots pulsed briefly. "A diplomatic answer. We shall see if the Admiral finds it convincing." Their escort led them through passages that gradually transitioned from underground tunnels to structures integrated with living vegetation. The luminous forest deserved its name. The massive trees pulsed with bioluminescence that shifted in complex patterns, creating a cathedral-like effect of light and shadow. Admiral Vex's command center was built around and within the largest trees, camouflaged so effectively that Rex couldn't distinguish structure from forest until they were directly upon it. Unlike General Korth's technology-dominated headquarters, this facility breathed with the rhythm of the surrounding ecosystem. The Admiral herself awaited them in a circular chamber formed by the joined trunks of several massive trees. Light filtered through translucent sections of bark, creating dappled illumination that shifted constantly. Vex stood examining a three-dimensional tactical display similar to Korth's, though this one incorporated flowing patterns that mimicked natural systems. She was shorter than Korth, but projected a similarly commanding presence. Her blue skin was a lighter shade, almost turquoise, with luminescent patterns that extended visibly along her neck and the exposed portions of her arms. Her uniform combined practical military design with elements that echoed the forest around them. "Princess Zelia," the Admiral greeted with formal respect before turning to Rex. "And the human mercenary. I'm curious what brings a warrior of your reputation to my forest." Rex recognized the calculated informality, positioning herself as defender of natural territory rather than military commander. "Admiral Vex, I appreciate your willingness to meet. I've come regarding a matter that concerns all Zarkanians, regardless of faction." Vex gestured for them to be seated in a circle of living wood that formed natural chairs. "The planetary destruction capabilities, I presume." "Yes, we're aware of Northern progress on their weapon. A desperate move from a failing position. Both sides have reached the threshold," Rex stated plainly. "Northern intelligence is equally aware of Southern capabilities." The Admiral's expression remained impassive, but her luminescent spots pulsed rapidly. "A regrettable necessity. We will not allow the North to hold our people hostage with such threats, which leaves mutual destruction as the likely outcome." Princess Zelia interjected gently. "A tragedy beyond measure, regardless of which ideology proves right in the end." Vex turned to the princess. "With respect, Your Highness, the monarchy has maintained its neutral stance too long. The North began this conflict by imposing centralized control over territories that wished to maintain their traditional autonomy. The causes matter less than the outcome at this point," Rex observed. "Both General Korth and King Orion recognize that continued escalation serves no one." The Admiral's gaze sharpened. "You've spoken with Korth? And he admitted this?" "He's agreed to consider an alternative approach," Rex confirmed. "If you're willing to do the same." "What approach could possibly bridge our fundamental differences?" Vex challenged. Princess Zelia spoke, her voice taking on a formal quality. "The revival of the harmony-gathering tradition, a cultural practice that predates our division and offers a path to mutual understanding." Admiral Vex's reaction differed markedly from General Korth's, where he had dismissed the concept as superstition. Her luminescent spots brightened with recognition. "The ancient bonding ritual," she said softly. My grandmother spoke of such practices. They were abandoned when Northern industrialization rejected our traditional ways. Not rejected, Princess Zelia corrected gently. Set aside as our society evolved, but preserved within the royal traditions for times of greatest need. Rex watched the exchange with interest, noting how differently the same proposal registered with the Southern leader. Where he had emphasized strategic advantages to Korth, here, the cultural and traditional aspects might prove more persuasive. The Harmony Gathering offers a chance for direct communication beyond words, he explained, to understand each other's position at a level deeper than political rhetoric. Admiral Vex studied him thoughtfully. And you, Captain, what role does an outsider play in our ancient traditions? Neutral facilitator, Rex replied. Someone with no stake in Northern or Southern ideology, concerned only with preventing planetary destruction. The Admiral rose, moving to a living panel that opened at her touch to reveal a view of the forest beyond. My people have suffered greatly in this conflict. Villages destroyed, ancestral lands contaminated by Northern weapons. How can ritual alone address such wounds? It can't, Rex acknowledged honestly. No ceremony can undo the damage of war. But it can create an opening for genuine negotiation, a foundation of mutual understanding upon which practical solutions might be built. Vex turned back to face them. And Korth has agreed to this? He has agreed to consider it, Rex clarified. Contingent upon your willingness to participate? A subtle smile touched the Admiral's lips. Of course. Neither of us willing to be the first to extend a hand. She was silent for a moment, her spots pulsing in complex patterns. The concept has merit, I admit. Our traditional practices have always recognized the importance of direct connection in resolving conflict. Then you'll participate? Princess Zelia asked hopefully. I will meet with Korth in this Harmony Gathering, Admiral Vex decided. But I have conditions. The ceremony must take place in neutral territory, with equal representation from both factions. And we require verification that Northern planet-killer weapons are placed in standby mode during the proceedings. The same would be expected of Southern weapons, Rex noted. Naturally, Vex agreed. We have no desire for mutual annihilation, merely the preservation of our way of life. Rex exchanged glances with Princess Zelia, who nodded slightly. These terms seem reasonable, he confirmed. I believe King Orion would accept them as basis for proceeding. Then we have an agreement in principle, the Admiral concluded. Commander Talus will coordinate the security and verification details with your team. As they prepared to depart, Admiral Vex addressed Rex directly. Captain, you have a reputation for choosing the winning side. I'm curious. What do you consider winning in this situation? Rex met her gaze steadily. Any outcome where Zarkan survives intact, enough for both Northern and Southern cultures to continue existing. Some victories don't require an opponent's defeat. The Admiral's spots pulsed briefly. An enlightened perspective for a mercenary. Let us hope General Korth can achieve similar enlightenment. The return journey to the palace was filled with cautious optimism. Princess Zelia spent much of the time communicating updates to the Royal Council, while Rex reviewed mental notes on both faction leaders' responses and requirements. You've accomplished what many thought impossible, the princess remarked as they neared the capital. Convincing both Korth and Vex to even consider direct negotiation is remarkable. They're both pragmatists beneath their ideological positions, Rex observed. And neither truly wants to see their world destroyed. They just needed a face-saving mechanism to step back from the brink. Princess Zelia studied him with evident curiosity. You understand people well for someone who claims to fight without caring about causes. Rex shrugged slightly. Understanding motivations is a survival skill in my profession. It doesn't necessarily imply emotional investment. Doesn't it? The princess challenged gently. Her luminescent spots pulsing in a pattern he was beginning to recognize as amusement. Yet, here you are, investing considerable effort in saving a world not your own. Before Rex could formulate a response, the transit pod arrived at the palace station, where Chancellor Keth awaited them with palpable anxiety. "You've succeeded?" the Chancellor asked immediately. Princess Zelia nodded. "Admiral Vex has agreed in principle. She has conditions, but they're reasonable ones." Relief washed over Keth's features. "Excellent news. His Majesty and Princess Tylee are making preparations for the ceremony. We've identified the ancient hall as the most appropriate neutral location." As they walked through the palace corridors, Keth briefed them on developments. General Korth was skeptical that you would secure Vex's agreement. When informed, he demanded immediate verification protocols for weapon stand-down procedures. As expected, Rex nodded. Admiral Vex made similar demands. Both will need to save face with their supporters by emphasizing security and pragmatism rather than reconciliation. "The ancient hall is being prepared as we speak," Keth continued. "It hasn't been used for ceremonial purposes in generations, but it remains structurally sound and holds tremendous cultural significance for both factions." King Orion and Princess Tylee received them in a chamber that had been converted into a planning center. Maps and historical records covered the tables, alongside ceremonial items being examined by cultural advisors. "Captain Vance," the king greeted him warmly. "You have given us reason to hope after many years of despair." "The leaders have only agreed to participate," Rex cautioned. "The ceremony itself must succeed in breaking through decades of hostility." "Which is why the preparations must be perfect," Princess Tylee interjected. She approached with a tablet displaying ancient texts. "We're reviewing the traditional protocols to ensure every element is authentic while accommodating modern security concerns." Rex spent the remainder of the day in intensive planning sessions. Security arrangements proved particularly challenging, as neither faction trusted the other's forces. Eventually, a compromise was reached. Minimal honor guards from both sides, supplemented by palace security under Rex's temporary command. The verification of weapon stand-down procedures required delicate negotiation. Technical experts from both factions would monitor the other's systems remotely, with redundant checks by royal scientists considered neutral by both sides. Princess Zelia and Princess Tylee focused on preparing the ceremonial aspects, the specific foods and drinks to be shared, the physical arrangement of the ancient hall, the traditional garments to be worn by participants. As evening fell, Rex found himself on a balcony overlooking the palace gardens, taking a rare moment of solitude to process the day's developments and prepare mentally for the challenges ahead. "May I join you?" Princess Tylee's voice came from behind him. Rex turned, nodding. "Of course." The princess moved to stand beside him at the balcony rail, her luminescent spots glowing softly in the twilight. "My sister tells me you handled Admiral Vex masterfully." "She was more receptive to traditional approaches than General Korth," Rex noted. "The cultural framing resonated with her southern values." "You adapted your approach to each leader," Princess Tylee observed. "A valuable skill." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before she continued. "Tomorrow's ceremony will be challenging. The Harmony Gathering requires genuine openness from participants. Military leaders are trained to maintain barriers and protect vulnerabilities. They're also trained to assess situations and adapt to changing conditions," Rex replied. "If they can be made to experience even a fraction of the connection I felt during our training sessions, it should create an opening." Princess Tylee turned slightly toward him, her expression curious. "What did you experience, if I may ask, during our connection?" Rex considered how to articulate something so inherently subjective. "A sense of your determination, your hope, your care for your world and people." He paused, adding more quietly, "And something personal, directed toward me, that I couldn't quite identify." The princess's spots pulsed rapidly, a reaction he now recognized as equivalent to a human blush. The harmony connection reveals truth, even truths we might prefer to keep hidden. Before Rex could respond to this intriguing statement, Princess Zelia appeared at the balcony entrance. There you are. Chancellor Keth has final security protocols requiring approval. The moment passed as they returned to practical matters, but Rex found himself reflecting on the princess's words throughout the evening. The personal dimension of his mission was becoming increasingly complex in ways he hadn't anticipated. The ancient hall proved to be a massive circular chamber deep within the oldest section of the palace complex. Its walls were formed from crystal of such antiquity that it had developed a pearlescent opacity, glowing softly from within. The ceiling soared to form a perfect dome, with a central aperture that admitted a shaft of natural light. This chamber predates even the monarchy, Chancellor Keth explained, as Rex surveyed the space early the following morning. It was the original gathering place of the tribal leaders who first united our people. Workers moved carefully around the perimeter, making final preparations. In the center of the hall stood a circular platform with a depression in its middle, where ceremonial vessels were being arranged. Surrounding this central area were positions marked in ancient symbols. The northern delegation will enter from the east passage, the southern from the west. Keth indicated. Each will bring 3 representatives, the faction leader, and 2 advisors. His Majesty and the princesses will enter from the north, while you will escort both delegations from your position at the south entrance. Rex nodded, mentally mapping the security implications. And the ceremonial progression? Princess Zelia will guide you through the final details shortly. But essentially, the ritual begins with formal introductions, proceeds through shared sustenance, then gradually increases physical proximity through the traditional movement sequences. Throughout the morning, Rex coordinated with security teams, verified weapon stand-down protocols, and reviewed contingency plans for various scenarios. By midday, everything was as prepared as it could be. Princess Zelia and Princess Tylee joined him for a final briefing in a small chamber adjacent to the ancient hall. They had dressed in traditional ceremonial attire, flowing garments of silver blue that accentuated their luminescent patterns, with intricate crystal headpieces that cast prismatic reflections. "You look concerned, Captain," Princess Zelia observed. "Professional caution," Rex replied. "Bringing lifelong enemies together is inherently unpredictable." "Which is why we've spent days preparing," Princess Tylee reminded him, "and why your role is so crucial. You stand apart from our conflict while understanding both perspectives." Princess Zelia presented him with a garment, a formal tunic of design similar to what he'd worn during training, but with subtle embellishments that incorporated elements from both northern and southern styles. "This marks you as Harmony Facilitator," she explained, "a neutral but honored position in the ceremony." As Rex changed into the ceremonial attire, the princesses reviewed the final sequence of the ritual. "Remember that the most critical moment comes during the transition from individual movement sequences to the shared circle," Princess Tylee emphasized. "That is when resistance is typically strongest, and when breakthrough is most likely to occur." "We've modified the traditional timing slightly," Princess Zelia added, "accelerating the early phases while extending the circle connection. Our ancestors had days for these rituals. We have hours." A soft chime announced that the delegations had arrived at their respective entrances. Rex took a deep breath, centering himself as he'd done before countless military operations. This mission might lack physical combat, but the stakes were higher than any battlefield he'd encountered. "It's time," he said simply. The ceremony began with formal processions. King Orion and the princesses entered first, taking positions at the northern point of the circular platform. Rex stood at the southern point, from where he would guide the faction representatives. General Korth's delegation entered from the east, the general himself in formal military attire, accompanied by his chief strategist and a senior science advisor. Their expressions were stoic, movements precise and measured. They took their positions at Rex's direction, standing at the eastern arc of the circle. Admiral Vex's group entered from the west, moving with the flowing grace characteristic of Southern culture. The admiral wore a uniform that incorporated traditional elements, accompanied by Commander Tallis and an elder who appeared to be a cultural advisor rather than military personnel. They positioned themselves along the western arc, maintaining careful distance from the northern delegation. King Orion stepped forward to the center of the platform, his regal bearing commanding attention. Representatives of North and South, I welcome you to the ancient hall, where our ancestors first forged unity from division. We gather today in the shadow of mutual destruction, seeking a path toward continued existence. The king's luminescent spots pulsed with formal patterns as he spoke. This harmony gathering is not a negotiation of terms or surrender of principles. It is an opportunity to understand one another beyond words and positions, to reconnect with the shared essence of Zarkanian life that transcends our differences. Rex observed the reactions of both delegations. General Korth maintained rigid formality, his spots pulsing in controlled patterns. Admiral Vex appeared more receptive, her posture relaxed, though alert. Both were carefully avoiding direct interaction with each other. Princess Zelia and Princess Tylee moved to flank the central depression, where the ceremonial vessels awaited. We begin with shared sustenance, they announced in unison. The first acknowledgement of our common nature and mutual vulnerability. The ritual sharing of food and drink proceeded as practiced, with the princesses first partaking of each substance before offering it to the faction leaders. Rex noted the hesitation from both Korth and Vex before their first taste, but also their careful adherence to protocol, each drinking from the same position on the vessel rim as the other had. The subtle effects of the ceremonial substances gradually became apparent. The rigid formality of the northern delegation softened slightly, while the southern representatives' movements became more focused. The luminescent patterns of all Zarkanians present began to pulse in subtly harmonizing rhythms, though still distinct between the factions. Now we move to physical alignment, Princess Tylee announced as the sustenance phase completed, first individually, then in paired sequences. This phase began with each participant performing prescribed movements in place, stylized gestures that activated and aligned their bioelectric fields. Rex demonstrated the adapted human versions for the benefit of both delegations, emphasizing that all participants, regardless of biology or faction, could achieve harmony through proper intention. General Korth performed the movements with military precision, but evident discomfort with their ritual nature. Admiral Vex moved with greater fluidity, her familiarity with traditional practices apparent. As the individual alignments progressed, the luminescent patterns throughout the hall began to synchronize further. The transition to paired sequences represented the first critical threshold. Participants would need to directly interact with those from the opposing faction. Captain Vance will guide the pairing sequence, Princess Zelia announced, nodding to Rex. Rex moved to the center of the platform. General Korth, Admiral Vex, please step forward. The two leaders approached cautiously, stopping at a formal distance from each other. The paired sequence begins with acknowledgement, Rex instructed, demonstrating the gesture, hands extended, palms upward. This represents openness to connection. After a moment's hesitation, both leaders performed the gesture. Their luminescent spots pulsed rapidly, betraying emotional intensity beneath controlled exteriors. Now, extend your right hand to meet the others, Rex continued. This represented the first direct contact between the faction leaders. Rex could sense the tension radiating from both delegations as Korth and Vex slowly extended their hands until their palms met in the center. A visible ripple of energy passed between them at the contact, their luminescent spots flaring momentarily before settling into a synchronized rhythm. Both leaders' expressions registered surprise at the intensity of the connection. Maintain contact while completing the acknowledgement cycle, Rex directed, guiding them through a series of positions where their connected hands moved in prescribed patterns, while their free hands performed complementary gestures. As the leaders completed this sequence, Rex directed the secondary participants to form pairs and perform the same movements. The chamber's energy shifted perceptibly as multiple connections formed across factional lines. "We now move to the circle formation," Princess Tylee announced. "All participants, please take your positions." This was the most critical phase, where all would join in a connected circle to experience the full harmony effect. Rex took his position between General Korth and Admiral Vex, providing a neutral buffer at what would be the most sensitive junction of the circle. "Join hands to complete the circuit," Princess Zelia instructed. As hands clasped around the circle, a profound energy surge flowed through the connection. Rex felt it as a warm current running through his body, similar to but stronger than what he'd experienced in training with the princesses. "Now, breathe with the unified rhythm," Princess Tylee guided, as a crystalline device in the center began emitting the pulsing tones Rex had practiced with. The collective breathing of the participants gradually synchronized with the tones, deepening the energetic connection. Rex became aware of emotional currents flowing through the circle: determination, pride, fear, hope, and beneath it all, a profound weariness with conflict. He sensed General Korth's iron discipline wavering as memories surfaced: childhood in a prosperous northern city, early military service motivated by genuine desire to protect, the gradual hardening of resolve through years of difficult decisions and losses. From Admiral Vex came flashes of southern landscapes now destroyed, family members lost in early conflicts, fierce determination to prevent the extinction of traditional ways of life that had sustained Zarkanians for millennia. Most significantly, he sensed recognition passing between the faction leaders, acknowledgement of the other's genuine conviction, grudging respect for the other's capabilities, and shared grief for what their world had become. The circle maintained connection for what felt like an eternity, but was likely only minutes. When Princess Zelia finally spoke, her voice seemed to come from a great distance. "We now move to the final phase, the harmony embrace." This represented the most challenging aspect, where participants would form smaller circles of complete embrace, as practiced. Rex guided General Korth and Admiral Vex to face each other directly, while he stepped back to allow their direct connection. "Complete the harmony with shared breath and resonant touch," Princess Tylee instructed. For a tense moment, it seemed the faction leaders might refuse this final step. They stood facing each other, neither willing to initiate the embrace. Rex prepared to intervene when Admiral Vex spoke, her voice barely audible. "My grandmother's village stood where your central power facility now operates," she said to Korth. "I still remember the melody stones that sang with the dawn." General Korth's spots pulsed rapidly. "The power facility provides energy for millions, but—" He hesitated. "I too remember the melody stones from diplomatic visits in my youth." Something shifted in their expressions, a shared memory creating an unexpected bridge. Slowly, with dignity rather than reluctance, they moved into the traditional embrace position, arms extended around each other's shoulders, foreheads nearly touching. The effect was immediate and powerful. Their luminescent patterns synchronized completely, spreading a wave of resonance that enveloped the entire chamber. Other participants formed similar connections, creating overlapping circles of harmony throughout the hall. Rex stepped back, observing the transformation with professional assessment and personal wonder. The tangible hostility that had pervaded the early stages of the ceremony had dissolved, replaced by a solemnity that acknowledged shared pain and possibility. When the embrace phase finally concluded, General Korth and Admiral Vex stepped apart, but maintained eye contact, a significant change from their earlier avoidance. "Perhaps," Korth said quietly, "there are aspects of Southern traditions that deserve preservation." "And perhaps," Vex responded, Centralized coordination has merits in certain contexts. It wasn't a peace treaty or formal agreement, but it represented a fundamental shift in perspective that made such outcomes possible. As the ceremony concluded with traditional closing statements from King Orion, Rex sensed that his primary mission had been accomplished. The immediate threat of planetary destruction had been averted through a genuine connection between the faction leaders. What followed over the next several days exceeded even the most optimistic projections. General Korth and Admiral Vex, having experienced direct empathic connection, found themselves unable to return to the previous state of absolute hostility. Initial discussions of weapon stand-down protocols expanded to include ceasefire arrangements. Then, preliminary framework for addressing core grievances. King Orion hosted daily sessions in more conventional meeting chambers, where technical experts from both factions worked alongside royal advisors to draft agreements. Rex observed these proceedings with professional interest, while maintaining his role as neutral facilitator when tensions occasionally resurfaced. A week after the Harmony Gathering, a preliminary peace accord was signed in the Ancient Hall. Its provisions included establishment of a demilitarized zone between northern and southern territories, joint reconstruction efforts for damaged infrastructure, and creation of a new governing council with balanced representation from both factions under royal oversight. Most significantly, both faction leaders agreed to permanent decommissioning of planetary destruction weapons, with verification protocols that would continue for years to ensure compliance. "You have accomplished what generations of diplomats could not," King Orion told Rex privately after the signing ceremony. "Zarkan owes you a debt that cannot be measured in credits alone." "The Harmony Gathering did the work," Rex responded modestly. "I merely helped create the conditions for it to occur." "Nevertheless," the king insisted, "you must be appropriately rewarded. I have instructed Chancellor Keth to prepare the promise payment, with a substantial bonus. Beyond that, I would offer you a permanent position as royal advisor on interplanetary relations, should you wish to remain on Zarkan." Rex was genuinely tempted by the offer. Despite his mercenary background, he had developed an unexpected attachment to this world and its people, particularly certain members of the royal family. Yet he hesitated, unsure if peacetime diplomacy suited his temperament. "I appreciate the offer, Your Majesty. May I have time to consider it?" "Of course," the king agreed. "There is no rush. The reconstruction efforts will take years, and your insights would be valuable throughout the process." That evening, Rex found himself once again on the palace balcony, contemplating his unexpected situation. The payment for this mission would indeed allow him to retire comfortably, yet the prospect lacked the appeal it once held. Something had changed within him during his time on Zarkan. "Deep thoughts, Captain." Princess Zelia's voice came from behind him. He turned to find both princesses approaching, their expressions uncharacteristically hesitant. "Considering your father's generous offer," Rex acknowledged, "and my own uncertain future." The princesses exchanged glances, their spots pulsing in that synchronized pattern he had come to recognize as communication between them. "We have a proposition of our own," Princess Tylee said carefully. "One that goes beyond royal advisor." Rex raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "I'm listening." "The Harmony Gathering revealed truths that cannot be ignored," Princess Zelia began, "including the connection that formed between the three of us during training. A connection that transcends professional obligation," Princess Tylee added, her spots pulsing with intensity. "And cultural differences." Rex felt a surge of the same energy he had experienced during their training sessions, a resonance that seemed to bridge the space between them, even without physical contact. "I felt it," he acknowledged quietly, but assumed it was merely an effect of the ceremonial substances and the unique circumstances. "It was more," Princess Zelia stated with certainty. "Dr. Helix, our chief medical scientist, has confirmed a rare compatibility between your human physiology and our Zarkanian biology. Compatibility, Rex questioned, uncertain of their meaning. Princess Tylee stepped closer, her expression both serious and hopeful. Zarkanian tradition holds that when genuine harmony forms between individuals, it represents a bond that should be honored and formalized. In ancient times, Princess Zelia continued, such bonds often crossed tribal lines, creating alliances through union. As twin heirs to the throne, we have unique obligations regarding succession. Rex began to understand the direction of the conversation, yet could scarcely believe it. Are you suggesting a formal union? Princess Tylee confirmed. Between you and both of us, in accordance with ancient royal traditions of harmonized succession. This would not merely be symbolic, Princess Zelia added quickly. Dr. Helix's research indicates true genetic compatibility. Offspring would be possible, ensuring continuation of the royal line while introducing beneficial hybrid vigor. Rex found himself momentarily speechless, a rare occurrence for a veteran of countless high-stakes negotiations. This is unexpected. But not unwelcome, Princess Tylee asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. Rex considered his response carefully. The connection he had felt with the princesses was undeniable, an empathic resonance unlike anything in his previous experience. Yet the implications of what they proposed were enormous. I'm honored beyond words, he said finally. But such a union would have profound implications for Zarkan's future. Would your people accept an outsider in such a role? The Harmony Gathering has already shifted perspectives on interspecies cooperation, Princess Zelia pointed out. Your role in preventing planetary destruction has earned you respect across factions. Moreover, Princess Tylee added, you would serve as Orbiter, a traditional position in Zarkanian culture that bridges between established powers. The peacekeeper who ensures balance. The concept resonated with Rex's natural inclinations. Throughout his career, he had maintained neutrality while navigating complex conflicts. This would be an extension of that role, but with personal dimensions he had never anticipated. And if I accepted, he asked quietly, what would that mean for us, beyond political arrangements? The princesses moved closer, their luminescent patterns synchronizing in the now familiar rhythm that indicated shared emotion. It would mean honoring the connection we've already begun to form, Princess Zelia answered simply. Learning each other's ways more deeply, building something that transcends our individual pasts. It would mean family, Princess Tylee added softly. Something I suspect has been absent in your life of conflict, as it has been in ours amid royal obligation. The truth of her words struck Rex profoundly. His life had been defined by movement between conflicts, never establishing permanent connections. The possibility of belonging somewhere, to someone, to two someones, in this case, held an appeal he couldn't dismiss. I would need time, he said finally, to be certain this is right for all of us. Of course, the princesses agreed in unison, their spots pulsing with what he now recognized as relief that he hadn't immediately refused. Take the time you need to consider. Our offer remains open. In the days that followed, Rex divided his attention between the ongoing peace implementation and careful consideration of the princess's unexpected proposal. He observed the gradual transformation of Zarkanian society as former enemies began the delicate process of reconciliation. The Harmony Gathering had created ripple effects throughout the culture, reviving interest in traditional practices while maintaining the technological advancements that had defined modern Zarkan. General Korth and Admiral Vex continued to work together with surprising effectiveness. Their shared experience during the ceremony had created a foundation of mutual respect that enabled them to navigate complex disagreements without returning to hostility. They frequently sought Rex's input on disputed matters, valuing his outsider perspective, and demonstrated neutrality. You have a natural talent for mediation, Admiral Vex commented, after Rex helped resolve a particularly thorny issue regarding resource allocation in border territories. Perhaps that was your true calling all along, rather than combat. The Admiral's observation resonated with Rex's own reflections. Throughout his mercenary career, he had often found himself drawn to understanding the underlying motivations of conflicts, rather than simply executing tactical objectives. The possibility of channeling that inclination into a constructive role on Zarkan held genuine appeal. His interactions with the princesses during this period maintained professional courtesy on the surface, though underlying currents of their connection remained palpable. They respected his need for space to consider their proposal, while demonstrating through their actions the genuine nature of their regard for him. Princess Zelia often sought his counsel on diplomatic matters, valuing his experience with diverse cultures across the galaxy. Princess Tylee included him in her work coordinating reconstruction efforts, where his practical knowledge of infrastructure proved unexpectedly useful. Through these collaborations, Rex gained deeper understanding of their individual personalities beyond the synchronized exterior they often presented. Zelia possessed analytical brilliance and diplomatic instinct, approaching challenges with meticulous attention to nuance and implication. Tylee combined technical expertise with intuitive empathy, often perceiving emotional undercurrents that others missed. Together, they complemented each other's strengths while sharing a core dedication to their world's welfare that Rex found deeply admirable. 3 weeks after the peace accord signing, Dr. Helix requested a meeting with Rex in the Royal Medical Facility, a complex of crystal and metal chambers equipped with advanced biological research technology. Captain Vance, the doctor greeted him formally. A tall, slender Zarkanian with elaborate luminescent patterns indicative of scholarly status. Dr. Helix projected both scientific authority and personal warmth. Thank you for coming. I have completed the compatibility studies the princesses requested. Rex nodded, appreciating the doctor's direct approach. And your findings? Dr. Helix activated a holographic display showing complex genetic modeling. Quite remarkable, actually. Despite evolutionary separation, human and Zarkanian genetic structures share certain fundamental patterns that allow for compatibility under specific conditions. The display shifted to show cellular interactions. The princess's royal lineage includes certain genetic markers that enhance adaptive compatibility, a trait possibly selected through ancestral unions between different Zarkanian subspecies. When combined with your particular genetic profile, which shows unusual adaptability itself, viable hybridization becomes possible. You're saying offspring would be viable, Rex clarified, wanting absolute certainty on this critical point. Yes, Dr. Helix confirmed, though not without careful medical support throughout gestation. The resulting children would combine characteristics of both species in unique patterns, but all models indicate they would be healthy and fully functional. Most interestingly, they would likely possess enhanced empathic capabilities, strengthened versions of both Zarkanian bioelectric communication and human emotional intelligence. The doctor's expression grew more serious. I should note that such hybridization would be unprecedented in documented galactic history. While interspecies relationships exist throughout settled worlds, reproductive compatibility is exceedingly rare without significant genetic engineering. Rex absorbed this information thoughtfully. What are the implications for the princesses? Would such pregnancies pose health risks? Manageable ones, Dr. Helix assured him. We would implement comprehensive monitoring protocols and supportive treatments throughout. The Royal Medical Facilities are well equipped for such specialized care. The doctor hesitated briefly before adding, If I may speak personally rather than professionally for a moment, this possibility represents something profound, a living bridge between worlds, embodied in royal heirs who would inherently understand both human and Zarkanian perspectives. The symbolic value alone would be immeasurable for interstellar relations. Rex thanked Dr. Helix for the information, his mind already processing the implications. The scientific confirmation of compatibility removed one potential barrier to accepting the princess's proposal. But the deeper questions remained personal rather than biological. That evening, he sought solitude in the palace gardens, which had begun to recover their former splendor, as resources were reallocated from military needs to civilian restoration. The bioluminescent plants cast gentle patterns of light across stone pathways, creating an atmosphere conducive to contemplation. "May I join you?" King Orion's voice came unexpectedly from a nearby alcove. Rex turned, bowing slightly in acknowledgement. "Of course, Your Majesty." The king approached with unhurried dignity, his expression thoughtful. "I understand Dr. Helix shared his findings with you today." "Yes," Rex confirmed, unsurprised that the king would be informed of such matters. "The results were illuminating." King Orion nodded, his luminescent spots pulsing gently. "My daughters have informed me of their proposal to you. I want you to know it has my blessing, should you choose to accept." Rex raised an eyebrow in mild surprise. "I would have thought tradition might favor a Zarkanian union." "Tradition also favors survival and prosperity," the king responded with subtle humor. "You have demonstrated qualities that any ruler would value in a successor's consort: courage, wisdom, adaptability, and genuine concern for our people's welfare. Your outsider perspective has already proven invaluable in breaking cycles of conflict that we could not resolve ourselves." The king gestured toward the recovering gardens. "Zarkan stands at a crossroads. The peace you helped create offers a new beginning, but its continuation will require ongoing dedication and fresh approaches. My daughters see in you a partner who can help them navigate that future. Having observed you these past weeks, I find myself in agreement with their assessment." Rex considered the king's words carefully. "And your people? Would they accept such an arrangement?" "Some would resist initially," King Orion acknowledged candidly. "Traditionalists on both sides might see it as dilution of Zarkanian identity, but the Harmony Gathering has already begun shifting such perspectives. Your role in preventing our extinction has earned you respect that transcends species distinction." The king's expression grew more solemn. "I cannot promise there would be no challenges, but I believe the benefits, both personal and societal, would ultimately outweigh them. My daughters deserve happiness as well as duty. In you, they appear to have found both." They walked in companionable silence for a moment, before the king added, "Whatever you decide, know that you have already earned a permanent place in Zarkanian history and gratitude. The choice before you should be made for your own future happiness, not from obligation." As King Orion departed, Rex found himself appreciating the wisdom and generosity of the monarch's perspective. The conversation had addressed some of his concerns regarding cultural acceptance, but the most fundamental question remained deeply personal: whether he could truly embrace a life so different from his previous existence, committed not only to a world, but to two remarkable individuals who offered connection he had never anticipated. The answer came to him not through further analytical deliberation, but through an unexpected moment of clarity the following day. While observing a joint Northern-Southern reconstruction team working to restore a damaged educational facility, Rex witnessed a simple interaction that crystallized his thoughts. A Northern engineer and Southern botanical specialist were arguing over the placement of support structures that would integrate with living plant systems, a hybrid approach combining both factions' strengths. The discussion grew heated until both participants suddenly paused, their luminescent spots pulsing in matched rhythm as they recalled their Harmony Gathering training. Without further words, they shifted to a collaborative stance, physically demonstrating their competing visions before finding a third approach that incorporated elements of both. In that moment, Rex recognized his own path forward, the integration of seemingly disparate elements into something stronger than either could be alone, represented not compromise but evolution, the natural progression that all successful civilizations ultimately embraced. His own future could follow a similar pattern, bringing together his human identity with Zarkanian connection to create something unique and valuable. That evening, he requested a private audience with the princesses in the Eastern Conservatory, where their training had begun. They arrived promptly, their composed exteriors belied by the rapid pulsing of their luminescent patterns that revealed their anticipation. "I've reached a decision," Rex stated simply, as they settled into the familiar circular arrangement. "I accept your proposal." The princess's spots flared brilliantly with synchronized joy before Princess Zelia composed herself enough to ask, "You're certain? We would not want acceptance born from obligation rather than genuine desire." "I'm certain," Rex confirmed. "My life has been defined by movement between conflicts, never establishing deeper connections. What you offer, belonging, purpose, family, I find I want those things more than I realized. And I've grown to care for both of you in ways I didn't anticipate when I arrived on Zarkan." Princess Tylee reached out to take his hand, her touch sending the now familiar energy rippling between them. "And we for you. What began as strategic necessity has become something far more meaningful." Princess Zelia joined their connected hands, completing the circuit. "There will be challenges ahead, cultural adaptations, political complexities, the unprecedented nature of our union. But together, we can navigate them as we did the peace process." The formal announcement came 3 days later, timed to coincide with the first major joint reconstruction project's completion, a symbolic rebirth for both Zarkan's infrastructure and its social foundation. In the ancient hall, where the Harmony Gathering had averted planetary destruction, King Orion proclaimed the betrothal of his daughters to Captain Rex Vance, who would assume the traditional role of orbiter with additional responsibilities as interspecies liaison. Reactions varied across Zarkanian society. Northern pragmatists approved the practical advantages of direct connection to human diplomatic networks. Southern traditionalists appreciated the revival of ancient royal customs of harmonized succession. Some conservatives on both sides expressed reservation about interspecies union, but found their concerns largely overshadowed by the broader momentum toward reconciliation and renewal. The betrothal period lasted 6 months, during which Rex immersed himself in deeper understanding of Zarkanian culture, while sharing human perspectives with his future wives and the broader royal court. General Korth and Admiral Vex, continuing their remarkable evolution from enemies to collaborators, jointly offered to oversee security arrangements for the upcoming royal union ceremony. "An interspecies royal consort," Vex remarked with subtle humor during planning sessions. "A year ago, such a concept would have been unimaginable. A year ago, we were preparing for mutual annihilation," Korth responded dryly. "I find I prefer this alternative, unconventional though it may be." The union ceremony, when it arrived, combined elements from both Zarkanian traditions and human marriage customs. Held in the palace's grand amphitheater, it brought together representatives from northern and southern territories, alongside diplomatic envoys from human colonies and other galactic civilizations, intrigued by the unprecedented alliance. King Orion presided with evident pride, as Rex and the princesses exchanged vows that emphasized both personal commitment and broader dedication to Zarkan's peaceful future. The Harmony Gathering elements incorporated into the ceremony created tangible energy that radiated throughout the assembly, reinforcing the connection between personal union and planetary reconciliation. "Through this harmonized bond," the king proclaimed, as the ceremony concluded, "we witness the beginning of a new chapter for Zarkan, one that honors our traditions while embracing new possibilities. May this union symbolize the broader harmony we continue to build between once divided peoples." The celebrations lasted for days throughout the planet, with both factions participating in traditional festivities, adapted to incorporate themes of unity and reconciliation. Rex found himself moved by the genuine warmth of reception from ordinary Zarkanians, many of whom viewed his presence as living proof that profound differences could be bridged through openness and mutual respect. Life settled into new patterns in the months that followed. Rex adapted to his formal role as Orbiter, mediating disputes between Northern and Southern representatives on the newly formed Unity Council, while providing valuable outsider perspective on Reconstruction priorities. His military background proved unexpectedly useful in converting defense installations to civilian purposes, reclaiming resources for rebuilding efforts. Princess Zelia focused on diplomatic initiatives, leveraging the unprecedented nature of their union to establish new connections with previously hesitant galactic civilizations. Princess Tylee led technological integration projects, combining Northern advancements with Southern ecological approaches to create sustainable systems that honored both traditions. Their personal relationship deepened beyond formal partnership into genuine family connection. The shared living quarters in the palace's eastern wing became a sanctuary where they could set aside public responsibilities and simply enjoy each other's company. Rex discovered the princess's individual interests and quirks beyond their royal personas. Zelia's passion for ancient literature, Tylee's talent for crystalline sculpture, their shared competitive spirit during traditional Zarkanian strategy games. 5 months after the union ceremony, Dr. Helix confirmed what the princesses had begun to suspect. Both were expecting children. The unprecedented nature of the pregnancies necessitated careful monitoring, but initial assessments indicated healthy development of twin hybrid offspring. Genetically distinct twins, Dr. Helix explained during an examination, his scientific demeanor barely containing evident excitement. Each princess carrying a child with unique genetic combinations, while sharing fundamental human-Zarkanian hybridization patterns. Truly remarkable. The news of the royal pregnancies was shared carefully with the public, presented as fulfillment of ancient prophecies regarding harmony children who would unite divided bloodlines. This framing, drawing on traditional Zarkanian mythology, provided cultural context that helped normalize the unprecedented biological development. Throughout the pregnancies, Rex remained deeply involved in both governmental duties and personal support for the princesses. Dr. Helix developed specialized treatments to address the unique challenges of interspecies gestation, while cultural advisors prepared adaptation of traditional birth ceremonies to accommodate the hybrid nature of the royal offspring. The births, when they finally occurred after 11 months of careful monitoring, became a planetary celebration. Princess Zelia delivered a daughter with subtle luminescent patterns against skin of warm bronze, while Princess Tylee's son displayed more pronounced Zarkanian coloration with distinctly human facial features. Both children demonstrated immediate signs of the enhanced empathic capabilities Dr. Helix had predicted, responding to emotional energies around them with extraordinary sensitivity. They will bridge worlds in ways we can only begin to imagine, King Orion observed as he welcomed his grandchildren in a private family ceremony before their public presentation. Living embodiments of harmony. The children were named in accordance with both Zarkanian tradition and human custom. The daughter, Elia Vance, the son, Torin Vance. Their formal titles acknowledged both their royal heritage and their unique status as first of a new harmonized lineage. 5 years passed, bringing remarkable transformation to Zarkan. The reconstruction efforts progressed from emergency restoration to innovative development, with integrated communities emerging where once battle lines had been drawn. The former demilitarized zone evolved into a thriving central region that showcased the best aspects of both northern and southern approaches. Technological advancement harmonized with ecological integration. The royal children grew into extraordinary youngsters who embodied the promise of their mixed heritage. Their natural empathic abilities facilitated unprecedented understanding between previously divided communities, as they could literally feel and articulate perspectives from both traditional viewpoints. Educational programs throughout Zarkan began incorporating elements of the Harmony Gathering adapted for children, inspired by the evident benefits demonstrated by the royal offspring. Rex, who had once defined himself as a mercenary moving between conflicts, found profound fulfillment in his established role as royal consort and planetary mediator. His unique position as both insider and outsider allowed him to identify potential conflicts before they escalated and suggest solutions that might not occur to those embedded within traditional Zarkanian thinking. The Harmony family, as they came to be known throughout the planet, made regular public appearances in all territories, reinforcing the visible success of integration and cooperation. Princess Zelia and Princess Tylee maintained their individual spheres of influence while collaborating seamlessly on matters of planetary importance. Rex's relationship with them deepened into a partnership of genuine equality and mutual support that transcended its unconventional origins. Word of Zarkan's remarkable transformation spread throughout the galaxy, attracting diplomatic missions from worlds experiencing similar factional conflicts. The Harmony Gathering Protocol, adapted for diverse species and cultural contexts, began to be implemented on other planets with promising results. Rex frequently hosted visiting diplomats, seeking to understand how ancient ritual and modern conflict resolution could be effectively combined. "What we're witnessing," he explained to one such delegation, "isn't merely peacekeeping, but true integration. The recognition that diversity strengthens rather than threatens when approached with openness rather than fear." On the 5th anniversary of the original Harmony Gathering that had averted planetary destruction, a grand celebration was held in the ancient hall, now restored to its full historical splendor. Representatives from across Zarkan and beyond gathered to commemorate the journey from near extinction to flourishing renaissance. King Orion, who had begun to show signs of age but remained a commanding presence, addressed the assembly with evident pride. 5 years ago, we stood at the precipice of self-destruction, divided by differences that seemed insurmountable. Today, we gather as a unified people who have learned to value our diversity as strength rather than weakness. The king gestured to where Rex stood with Princesses Zelia and Tylee, their children between them. Through unexpected connection and ancient wisdom, we found a path forward that honors both our traditions and our potential. The Harmony family before you symbolizes not just Zarkan's present, but our collective future, one where differences enhance rather than divide us. As applause filled the ancient hall, Rex felt a profound sense of completion. The mercenary who had arrived on a war-torn planet, seeking payment, had found something far more valuable: purpose, connection, and family. The human who had stopped an alien civil war had received a reward beyond imagination, not just in royal status or material comfort, but in meaningful contribution to a world's rebirth. Princess Zelia leaned close, her luminescent spots pulsing with affection. "Your thoughts seem far away." "Not far," Rex replied, smiling at his family. "Just reflecting on unexpected journeys and their destinations." Princess Tylee took his hand, completing the familiar circuit of energy between them. "And is this destination satisfactory, Captain Vance?" Rex looked at his wives, their children, and the thriving world they were building together. "More than satisfactory," he answered with genuine contentment. "It feels like home." In the years that followed, the Harmony model pioneered on Zarkan spread to other worlds facing similar divisions, creating a network of peaceful cooperation across formerly conflicted regions of the galaxy. The royal children grew into young adults who embodied the best qualities of both species, eventually becoming ambassadors of Harmony methodology to distant civilizations. Rex never returned to his mercenary life, finding continued fulfillment in his role as orbiter and harmonized consort. The once battle-hardened soldier discovered that building peace required greater courage and brought deeper satisfaction than any conflict he had previously navigated. The human who had stopped an alien civil war had indeed received a reward that shocked the entire court, not merely in royal status or material wealth, but in transformative connection that changed both his life and the destiny of an entire world. What had begun as a calculated mercenary mission had evolved into a legacy of harmony that would continue for generations to come, both through his descendants and through the peaceful methods that now bore his name throughout the galaxy.